Hello, everybody. This is Warren Redlick. I'm here with Ross Gerber from Gerber Kawasaki. He's one of my favorite people in what I would call the financial world. Gerber Kawasaki is a wealth management firm, if I'm not mistaken. He runs a mutual ETF called GK, which I own some. I own
Oh,
some amount
great.
of GK. I invested right when it opened up. A big fan. And I wanted to ask you, Ross, before I dive in further, I just said a little bit about you. Would you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your connection to Tesla?
Yeah, my name is Ross Gerber. I'm president and CEO of Gerber Kawasaki Wealth and Investment Management, and I run the GK ETF, which is a technology and climate change focused ETF. Obviously, picked the absolute high of the market to start my ETF because I enjoy struggles and challenges. But actually have now created one of the greatest opportunities for investors to participate in the future growth of what I consider the most consequential economic change that we have today, which is going from an oil and gas infrastructure to an electric infrastructure, which we think will be one of the most consequential, economic themes over the next decade, along with investing in technology and consumer products and services. That is really our focus. We manage money for individual clients. We manage money for the Tesla community. I'm proud to say that I think we manage more money for the Tesla community than any firm in the country now. Our position in Tesla is still well over $100 million in Tesla stock for our clients. And we've just been growing the Tesla community at our firm. So, that's really what I say was we're the only firm that won't make you sell your Tesla. Like a lot of advisors, constantly follow traditional money management ideas. And obviously the volatility of Tesla is not for everybody, but the upside potential of such a consequential company is crucially important to what we perceive as people's long-term opportunity to build wealth. So GK is a really forward-focused company, and we work with all kinds of people, and we have no minimums.
And then just really quick, the concept of wealth management, I think from a lot of Tesla investors' perspective, it's like, well, it's really simple. I just buy Tesla stock and I don't worry about it. There are things that
They're calling me today, though, Warren. They're all calling me today.
No, but there are things that wealth management firms do for people other than just simple asset allocation. This is what you should invest in. There's tax strategies and there's other. Can you explain a little bit about what you do for your clients beyond just picking stocks or funds?
I think this is a really important point because I think a lot of people say, well, you're just picking stocks and I can pick the index. And I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Except that's a very small part of what we do, because we manage people's financial lives, and people's financial lives change depending on their life. Like, for example, this week, more people in the technology industry have been laid off than since 2000. Now, this is an area that we work with. We work with tech employees. It's one of our main client bases. And right now we are finishing like this new software that we're building to analyze different compensation packages from different tech companies as employees make their career transition. So this is one of the most important financial decisions people make, is like which company they work for. And so what we did was we overlaid our stock analysis with compensation packages analysis from the major firms. So if you're looking to work at Roblox or Disney, both stocks that are cheap right now, which one has more potential? And then comparing what compensation packages each are offering so that we can give a client a better perspective of what their 5-year opportunity is, depending on which career choice they make. This is much more consequential to your wealth than, let's say, which stock you own.
Okay, so that's what I was looking for exactly. So now I want to move on. What I wanted to talk to you about, the reason I asked you to come on, and I'm going to be doing a series of videos like this, is I've been advancing what I call napkin math models for Tesla. In particular, my battery revenue model and my Robotaxi model are two that I talk about a lot. So I want to lay out my battery revenue model for you really briefly, something that Elon actually talked about in an investor call 2-3 years ago. And people were messaging me, Warren, Elon's using your model. Like, I'm pretty sure Elon came up with that on his own. I don't think he's watching my videos to figure out how to value his company, but really straightforward. Elon and Drew have said in 2030, they expect to be producing products containing 3 terawatt hours of batteries. So 3 terawatt hours of batteries.
Now you're talking about megapacks, right?
Megapacks, power walls, everything together.
Power walls, megapacks,
all the products together, it works out
just
to 3
that
terawatt hours of batteries. I see it as being 2/3 energy and 1/3 cars when I do my own numbers. But
you're saying the ultimate like cell usage for Tesla will end up being 2/3 into energy products and 1/3 into automobiles.
Right. But I'm just, the key point is that the total production of Tesla, the battery component of that. In other words, you make a car, it has this many kilowatt hours of batteries. You make a mega pack, it has this many kilowatt hours of batteries. When you add together everything Tesla produces, including something like solar panels, which don't even have, or solar roof tiles, which don't even have batteries, just when you add all the products together, everything totaled, you're going to be doing 3 terawatt hours of batteries. That's something that they said at Battery Day. That's something that they reiterated in the latest earnings call, that their target is 3 terawatt hours of batteries in 2030. What I look at Tesla's current production of products, and my simple example is imagine, or look at a simple Model 3. The standard range Model 3 is about $47,000 or $48,000 base price, not including any options. And it has about a 60 kilowatt hour battery pack. That works out to about $800 a kilowatt hour. If you look at Mega Pack, it's about $2 million for a 4 megawatt hour pack. That's about a little more than $500 a kilowatt hour. Powerwall's closer to 1,000. Plaid Model S is like 1,300. Depending on which vehicle you're talking about, you get different things or which product. But I just use a simple number. I take the lowest one, which is Mega Pack, which is around $500 a kilowatt hour. And I say, okay, let's suppose that their 3 terawatt hours of products sell for $500 a kilowatt hour. That's $1.5 trillion in revenue in 2030. They're going to do about $80 billion in revenue in 2022. So that's basically a 20x in revenue.
Yeah, but you're not factoring in a lower cost per terawatt hour as technology makes the manufacturing process easier.
I think it's very possible that the cost of the batteries, I think it's likely that the cost of the batteries will come down. That doesn't mean that the price that they sell the products at goes down. I think
it will.
Well, yes. Okay, so I love this. You're confronting me early. This is great.
I'm just saying it's just economics, as you have this efficiency of mass manufacturing, you have a lower input cost in theory, then you have lower output cost, you have more competition, then you have lower prices.
Well, yes, but Tesla has been lowering their costs they've been increasing their margins over time.
Right, but that's more related to scale, because Tesla's like a horribly inefficient company on the short term and amazingly efficient on the long term, because the way Elon thinks is so far ahead that he spends so much money up front thinking about the long term. And that's why Tesla's been so successful, honestly, is mostly because he already had planned on it. Like most companies like Ford just didn't even think they were going to be that successful. And you're bringing up the biggest issue, which is battery constraint, cell constraint, which is across the whole industry. So on the short term, I think all your numbers make sense because you just have this constraint that probably won't be alleviated for an extremely long period of time, like let's say at least 5 years minimum, right? And maybe 10. Like it's really, see, this is why this is so exciting to me, because like you're quantifying numbers around like, oh, if they sell this much, then like I think if you really break down all the utilities like globally and the way we generate power and the efficiency of solar with batteries, and we're not even talking about on small scale like power walls, which I think will end up being less popular as more utility size projects like what happened in Florida and Fort Myers, the utilities that use, neighborhood, systems, not just individual, are better off in a lot of ways because you can share power if one goes out. So I think it's really hard to quantify how big that market is. Okay. So let's say it's unlimited. And so what we're really talking about is like who can build the most batteries the quickest.
Yep.
That's really what matters. So the price that you're figuring right now might hold for at least 5 years, but I think in 10 prices go down and you have much more efficiency and you have technology, which unless it's like the iPhone, which somehow doesn't get less expensive no matter how, it's like, so in a way it does get less expensive because like an iPhone 10 is like almost as good as an iPhone 13, but it costs half as much, let's say now. So you're really buying like new features. Apple's basically conning you every year to get a little bit better, like camera and pay $1,000. So it's whether Tesla can say our batteries are so good, which might be true, that there won't be a pricing decrease relative to inflation over a long period of time, let's say a decade, is very possible. So I don't want to say you're out of your mind. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I do think that battery technology, and especially basic battery technology, it's mostly nobody's put a lot of effort into it. And now that they are, I do suspect supplies of battery cells to increase dramatically over the next decade.
Well, yeah, I mean, Drew and Elon said they're going to produce they're going to produce a terawatt hour, 1,000 gigawatt hours of batteries in the U.S. alone. But they're projecting that out, and CATL is ramping their production. And lithium iron phosphate cells tend to cost less than nickel-based cells. Although I did hear from somebody at Tesla when we were at, I think, Cyber Rodeo, the opening of the factory, that lithium iron phosphate prices are actually getting close to nickel-based.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to just make whatever they're going to make. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
but
whatever.
But I just want to come back to this $500 a kilowatt hour, because I got your pushback. I think it's actually the best criticism of my model is you're not really going to get $500 a kilowatt hour.
But you can remodel it even at half price just to see the numbers, and you're still getting hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue, right?
I'm still ready to defend the $500 a kilowatt hour.
It's fine. I'm just saying we don't know what that number is, and to quantify that from a long-term analysis perspective is troubling, mostly because you could come up with like this big number, but I've seen this before in lots of analysis for different things. And then like when you get to a certain size, it just doesn't work that way. So that's the other problem, you know, like, can you even get to this size, and what are all the factors that might prevent us from getting to the size that we don't know about yet? So, you know, I don't want to poo-poo it, but at the same respect, I see there's a value to having a range of prices.
Okay. No, so the thing is that Tesla has a range of products. So like the Model 3 right now, it's about $800 a kilowatt hour for their vehicle. The Model Y is similar, about like $65,000, say, for a Model Y with an 82 kilowatt hour pack. That's about $800 a kilowatt hour. The thing is, yes, the price could go down per kilowatt hour, but it could also go up. And an example of how it could go up is if they deliver FSD. If FSD all of a sudden reaches, let's call it level 4. I hate using the level thing, but you can sit in the car and not pay attention until the car tells you, hey, you got to take over. Right? If they deliver that level of self-driving, and let's say it's $25,000 per vehicle at that point to get FSD, I think a lot of people buy it.
I don't see that either, but
you don't see which?
I don't see them charging twice as much for FSD when it works.
What do you see them charging?
Same.
So, all right, so let's go with 15,000.
Yeah.
Let's go with 15,000 for FSD, and let's say we're in 20.
Because remember, they got to get people to buy it too. You know what I mean?
Okay, but if they deliver to the point where you don't have to pay attention anymore, the take rate goes up. If the take rate currently is, and when I said, you know, $47,000 and 60 kilowatt hours, you get about $800 a kilowatt hour.
But here's my argument is that you shouldn't factor in full self-driving revenue into your kilowatt hour cost or whatever, because it's a software feature. It's irrelevant of the hardware you're talking about.
No, the point is, what's the revenue that they generate? If they generate more revenue, let's suppose the take rate goes from 10% to 20%. But
then you could add in supercharger revenue. You can add in search revenue they're going to get on the screen. You're going to add in Twitter commerce revenue that they get on the screen. You know, like we could talk about the screen and the revenue that they could make, like Google.
Yeah, I mean, those are things we could get into. I'm leaving out like,
but I'm just saying, if you're looking at like dollars per kilowatt hour of battery, in theory, the Tesla platform could have an ever increasing number based off this method of calculation. For sure. The car could be like this revenue driving machine. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because like it becomes like your phone, but without, like, I'm sick of my phone. Like, there's no reason why my car can't do half the things my phone does, like ordering dinner, you know, and like ordering Uber Eats. Like, they announced Zoom in your car, and I was like, thank God, this is great, you know. And I tweet my partner, I go, that solves our Zoom room problem because we're running out of room in our office because I won't expand the office, you know. And I said people can go down and do Zooms in their Tesla now.
So you're saying I'm going to get in my car and it's going to know I want to go to Taco Bell. It's going to drive me to Taco Bell. And it's going to overhead. I'm going to pull up to the drive-thru.
You go to Taco Bell every Saturday night when you're drunk. The car's going to be like, you're drunk again. I'm taking you to Taco Bell. I'm taking you home. And I'm going to Zoom your wife so she's not worried, you know?
So I think...
So yeah, the revenue per kilowatt hour could be twice that over time based off this system of analysis.
Okay, so let me take it forward. Let me just assume the $500 a kilowatt hour, and I agree with you. You might move it down.
I'm sorry, I keep messing.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I'm enjoying this. Okay. But let's just work with $500 a kilowatt hour for a second. Yeah. That gets you to 1.5 trillion in revenue, and if you have, let's say, 20% margins, right? Then you've got. Well, I mean, that's amazing. That's their current operating margin, right?
No, I mean, I'm just thinking that would be amazing, right? Like,
right. So then you have
billions in profits, right?
Then you'd have $300 billion a year in gross profit, right? Sorry, I'm doing gross.
Well, yeah, but then like Tesla's bigger than like most of the countries in the world.
Yes, but sorry, so it's 30%. The car gross margin is 30%. The net margin, I think, is around 20%. So you'd have $300 billion a year in net profit. And if you gave it a price earnings ratio of like 30, you'd have a $9 trillion market cap. And right. I just want to, when you say larger than most countries, there's a common thing I hear from people is, well, Tesla couldn't be larger. Tesla's market cap couldn't be larger than the GDP of some country. And that misses something. GDP maps to revenue or profit. I think GDP maps to profit. And market
it's revenue. It's revenue per person who works.
But market cap maps to wealth. So that's right. A little bit, they're a little bit off. But anyway, just
they're not comparable.
Numbers,
right.
Doing those numbers, when I say, okay, I've got a clear path to $9 trillion market cap. You've got 1.5 trillion in revenue. You've got $300 billion in net profit. And you do a 30 price earnings ratio, you've got a $9 trillion market cap, which right now we're at a $600 or $700 billion market cap. That's like a 12x of where we are now.
Right.
Can you tell me, aside from the $500 a kilowatt hour, when I do that $300 billion profit, 30 price earnings ratio, what am I getting wrong there?
Well, nothing in that. There's this whole thing called life in between those numbers that always messes with it, like the Federal Reserve, for example. So that said, I would take your number and cut it in half because I do that with all my long-term analysis just to be conservative, right? And that's the exact number Ron Barron just came up with the other day.
That was Elon's number too. Yeah.
Right. Right. So now you got some like confirmation, maybe it's biased confirmation, but you got some confirmation that a market cap of 4 to 5 trillion is possible, reasonable over the long term. You're looking at $600 or $700 billion company today, which I think should be worth twice where it's trading at now. Personally, like it's insane that Elon has done this again, where he figured out how to get all these people to sell his stock because he's such a pain in the ass that people won't own Tesla, like because they don't like Elon. This is exactly what happened in 2019 when I made 20X. Because everybody hated Elon, they sold the stock, and they were missing that the company was about to go through this massive growth spurt, which is about to happen again.
Yeah, I've got a confession. So I'm selling this house that I'm sitting in, and when the house is sold, I'm going to have a pile of cash. And I'm planning to buy about $100,000 in Tesla stock. And I'm wondering, can we keep the stock price below 200 until like mid-January when I get my money?
I know.
Just like, and
I'm getting text messages. Should we be buying Tesla stock here? And I go, didn't you like Tesla stock at 300? It's like, why are you calling me at 185? Of course. Like, nothing's changed at Tesla just because Elon wants to shove a big hammer up as what. Like Tesla is like happily making cars and, moving along, thinking, thank God Tesla didn't acquire Twitter, right?
Yeah, that would have been
he could have done that and it would have been a fucking disaster for Tesla shareholders. But he doesn't, people in Tesla shareholders don't understand that Elon did us a favor. He sold his Tesla stock, forcing down the price, allowing us to buy it cheaper so that he could buy Twitter to fix, which I think he's learning real quickly is no fun at all. And, and like, I'm like, wow, you've always wanted to own Tesla. And now in 1 month, the stock's down 25%, but yet like nothing's happened bad at the company.
Right. I
think the biggest risk to Tesla is China, but China goes out of their way to praise Tesla every day.
Yeah.
They love Tesla, so I don't know about these COVID policies, but my feeling is in January, February, we're going to see the Chinese government make changes with their COVID policies, and it's going to be wildly bullish for Tesla.
Yeah. And also the Inflation Reduction Act is very bullish for Tesla as well.
It's unbelievable. I call it the Tesla Enrichment Act. It's unbelievably good for Tesla. That's what it is.
Yes.
They get money on the input side and they make it cheaper for consumers. They build everything in the United States. Like, it's, who else does this? I own Polestar. Polestar doesn't do this. Polestar makes their cars in Europe and they make their batteries in China. And then they're like, oh, we're building a factory in South Carolina so we can qualify for this stuff. Tesla's already there.
All right. So I think we've covered my battery revenue model. I want to turn to the second model, which is the Robotaxi model. And the Robotaxi model requires you to believe that at some point Tesla will solve full self-driving, and they will actually have a Robotaxi fleet that basically replaces Uber and Lyft and taxis and eventually does.
Yeah. I think the first one's going to be easier than the second.
The first one being what?
They're going to solve full self-driving. I mean, I just used it this morning, and it's like I have a very challenging drive to work, and there's certain parts of my drive that it cannot do just because of the way it's just LA driving, right? Yeah. But when I got full self-driving, I think it was like 6-8 months ago, I basically had to intervene like 12 times. You know, like I didn't even trust it. You know what I mean? Like at all.
Yeah.
Like I got pulled into an intersection. I'm scared it's going to drive me into the other car. Now I trust autopilot on the highway 100%. Like I would go to sleep level 5 on autopilot. Seriously, you can fall asleep. It's so good.
I've had moments like that.
No, but seriously, like the highway is way easier than the street. It's just not even comparable, right? And so like an LA street is crazy. And so now I'm interviewing like 2 or 3 times versus like 12 on a very difficult drive. And on simple drives, not at all. Not at all. So like if they can do that in 6 to 8 months, so like in a year from now, I think they'll have mastered level 3 for sure. And level 4 probably potentially, you know, like they'll probably have people sit in the car in the front seat for a long time, I think. Right. But like, like even my comfort with it has grown a lot, you know, as long as it's not doing anything crazy with. So I think the biggest actually impetus to Robotaxi and full self-driving implementation on a scalable level is the humans. The humans make it real hard. So the humans keep screwing up my full self-driving drives because the humans drive like crap. So I was literally having this weird, surreal experience following this very old person driving who was driving like crap on full self-driving. And the car was like, basically like, I don't know what to do because this person's like, can't even drive. And I was sitting there thinking, full self-driving is better than most 80-year-old plus drivers already. And if you actually look at driving data, there's people who die every day driving. There's accidents all over the place every day. Cars catch on fire every day. You know what I mean? And so I think full self-driving is ready now if you compare it to the average 80-year-old.
Yeah.
You know?
Or a 16-year-old.
Dude, I will take full self-driving over both of my dad and my stepdad driving. So they're both in their mid-80s and they both drive and they both insist that they are perfectly capable of driving. But that's absurd. Okay. Like my driving skills are like 1,000 times better than theirs in reaction times and whatever. So full self-driving will be, that's what I keep saying. I challenge anybody at the NHTSB versus full self-driving. I think those cars drive better than the regulators themselves.
Yeah. It's funny that I have 2 kids who are driving, and I won't name which one is better than the other, but one of them was driving somewhere. And I said, hey, would you put FSD beta on? And she drove with FSD beta on, and I felt so much more comfortable when she was supervising FSD beta than when she was driving herself.
Dude, this is such a big deal, what you just said, because the car also allows you to limit the top speed, and you can see where your kids are, whether they know this or not, which I'm sure they do. But like, my biggest fear is actually my kids getting injured or killed in a car accident. And as a kid growing up in LA, I had friends who died in DUI accidents. And I was personally in a very bad car accident when somebody else was driving that I was very fortunate. And, you know, 16, 17, 18-year-old drivers are scary. So now all of a sudden you've got this feature, right? Where it gives you comfort. Yeah. You know, it's like the other day I was driving home from a meeting late at night, you know, and I was tired. And I put on full self-driving because it's just like an extra set of 8 eyes, you know, yeah. And I'm like, it definitely helps. Like there's no negative to this. So I think people tend to be extremely negative about the technology because if it doesn't work perfectly 99.99999% of the time, then it's not perfect. But then they're forgetting that humans are extremely bad drivers, and the expectation of perfection is a very high bar.
Yeah. Well, also, I love what you said before, that when you first started driving it, you intervened 12 times a day, and now it's 2 or 3 times a day. And a lot of people don't see the progress because they relate it to how the last version was. And you don't see as much improvement from 10.69.2.3 to 10.69.2.4. But if you compare it to version 8, it's like, wow, this is a lot better. And
some of the versions were like a step back, like a couple of versions, I was like, this sucked. And I was like, what did you do? And then it was like the next version comes and it was like twice as good. I was like, all right, I deal with the FSD beta guys sometimes because I actually had some issue, and I've had 2 issues that I've had to go back and forth with the guys who actually build this stuff. And I found that experience to be amazing. They have the most incredible engineers working there who literally work all weekend long, all day and night. I'll text this guy, I'll email this guy like Saturday night, and he's answering me Sunday morning, like, I'm in your car. And it's so cool because they see inside your car all the things in real time, like, so you can, like, you're building the software, it's like, it's the super coolest thing I think I've ever been a part of, is being in the beta program, because I think it's like you're building some of the most consequential software. So the experiences you're having are important to Tesla. The problems you're having are important to Tesla. And so I ended up finding some problem, and it ended up being a pretty decent problem, and they solved it. And now they have to replace selfie cams for a lot of people, but we found a glitch. But you
didn't get Chuck Cook style left turn in the beta notes. You didn't get your name in the beta release notes.
No, I don't care about that. I just want it to work, but it wasn't working. And it's really interesting, the complexity of a Tesla. Yeah. Holy crap. Like, this is the other thing that other people don't get about Tesla when you're talking about modeling Robotaxi, is the moat. Okay, so like, you can model it as a business. You can say, okay, Warren, what's the, X amount of Teslas generating X amount of revenue. See, what's going to happen, and what's already happening, is that the rental car companies like Hertz are buying every Tesla they can. They're going to be the Robotaxi fleet. So that's the Hertz business model today, is it's a rental car fleet that will eventually be a Robotaxi fleet. But it's essentially the same thing, whether you rent the car and drive it yourself, or you rent the car and it drives you. And whether it's a short-term rental or a medium or long-term rental, because the future of cars is long-term rental anyways. The subscription model, is clearly the future, of cars. And Tesla will be at the forefront of this, where you can, like, buy your car or rent your car, get your insurance, use it as much as you want, drop it off, and maybe say, I don't want the car anymore. And somebody else will just pick it up the next day and use it for as long as they want, So there'll be shared ownership models and different ways that people can maximize their incomes, but it's all based around this mode of technology that, like, I was trying, because I'm friends with Austin Russell at Luminar, and I'm friends with the LiDAR people too. So I'm invested in LiDAR too, a small investment. So Polestar and Luminar are small investments of ours that are really focused on the other way to do it, is the way I look at it. And they're brilliant people working on the solution too. But I don't know if Elon's solution is better than their solution. I think it's way better. They don't. Okay, fine. I'll bet a little money on this, but I've spent time learning the technology. But what it came down to, what Tesla has done that the other companies have not done, is integrating hardware and software like Apple. And what the other companies are doing is they're putting in place hardware and software solutions, and all of them are different depending on which company. Okay, so Polestar is using Google and Luminar and NVIDIA, which is the best of the competitors. You know what I mean? But a lot of the companies aren't, and it's like, they're not even going to be close. So there's nobody building. Cruise doesn't work. Waymo doesn't work. Okay, the Waymo people will, when I tweet this, they go nuts, and I go, your Waymo sucks and it doesn't work. And they're like, well, I go, take it to LA. Try it down one of my roads. It won't go a mile. You know what I mean?
Right.
So in a little closed loop, that works. So the moat for Tesla is very similar to Apple. It's just very similar.
I think it's similar to SpaceX. If you look
That
at
too. That
if you look
too.
at SpaceX,
Right.
my take on it is this:
That's true. It is.
SpaceX landed their first orbital rocket booster on December 21, 2015. It's about 7 years ago. No one else has landed or reused an orbital rocket booster, so SpaceX is at least 7 years ahead. And
I pissed off this Rocket Alliance once too, tweeting that SpaceX was the U.S. space program, and then the guy from the Rocket Alliance tweeted me back. He's like, "What about me?" I go, "I own stock in Northrop. You know, it's one of my top holdings." I'm like, I like space. I'm in with you guys, but your rockets can't compare, man. I mean, like, let's be real. What you're saying is 100%. Like where SpaceX is technology and like it's insane level compared to the rest of everybody. You know, and like the Russians are like, we will not take your people up to the space station. Elon's like, oh yeah, like I care. You know, like I can go up there tomorrow, you know, and be back by Tuesday. It doesn't matter to me because for them it costs almost nothing to launch a rocket. And now they launch this Falcon Heavy. You know, you're right. So what math do you get for Robotaxi? So I see Robotaxi revenue being less certain as your battery number. Like your battery number to me is like a real thing. Well, but when you look at Robotaxi, I think there will be a revenue share that goes on with the operators of the services. I don't think Tesla will benefit by operating the service when you have really deep embedded relationships with companies like Uber. So Tesla and Uber are very close, and most people don't know this. Okay. Tesla actually pays Uber millions and millions and millions of dollars a year. Okay. Because Uber is Tesla's partner for when you take your car in for service or when a car is delivered to you or whatever, they Uber back. Okay. So when the delivery hell weeks, you got all these guys all over the country Ubering everywhere on the way back from dropping off cars. So Tesla literally is one of Uber's biggest customers, actually.
Yeah. Actually, for people who don't know that, when I take my car in for service, I've had a couple of like small minor warranty service issues. When I show up, they say, you've got $100 Uber voucher.
Right. Except they won't let you use Uber Black, which sucks. But that said,
that's not really a hurdle for me. I'm fine with regular Uber, but I'm just saying.
Once again, I care about my life. It's not about the car. It's about the quality of the driver, to be honest. Yeah. Okay. The difference between the Uber Black drivers and Uber regular drivers is like Chevy Cruze versus Tesla Autopilot, right?
Okay.
So that's actually why I take Black. It's not a pretentious thing. It's purely for the safety of my family.
Fair point.
And I try to avoid Uber for the most part because I have full self-driving anyways, right? It's Robotaxi. So and I don't drink.
Let me dive into the model. So the model.
Into the model.
I appreciate you. The model may not be the way you think about it, but Elon on Autonomy
Day.
No,
it's fine.
On Autonomy Day, Elon said that he anticipated Tesla having a fleet of 10 million robo-taxis that would sort of fill the gaps because I have like a Model 3 from 2018. I plan on putting that in the robo-taxi fleet whenever it goes live. But he described it as Tesla would have a fleet of 10 million to sort of fill the gaps where other people weren't serving. So my simple model is this: suppose Tesla has a fleet of its own 10 million robo-taxis, and each robo-taxi generates $50,000 a year in profit, gross profit. Okay. And I've talked to
How'd you get that number?
Oh, sure. If you figure each vehicle drives 100,000 miles a year, and I can justify the 100,000 miles a year.
Yeah, I'm sure there's data on Uber drivers or whatever. Right.
But if each vehicle drives 100,000 miles a year and 60% of the miles are paid and they get $1 a mile, that's $60,000 in revenue. If the cost per mile of the vehicle operation, adding everything together, is 10 cents a mile, which I think we're going to see with the next generation robotaxi vehicle.
Really? That's low.
It was 18 cents a mile. Elon projected 18 cents a mile for a Model 3 on Autonomy Day. The next generation vehicle is going to have lower cost per mile, lower cost. And it's going to be half the cost of the vehicle, they said, to produce it. You add it all together.
I agree.
So 10 cents a mile on 100,000 miles is $10,000. 60 cents, $1 a mile on 60,000 miles is $60,000. You end up with $50,000 in gross profit. Now, this is $1 a mile when Uber and Lyft are charging like $2.50 or $3 a mile. So I think
I mean, what I've heard from people who are Turoing their Teslas is you can gross $30,000 a year,
right?
You know, but your net is more like 6,000 or 7,000.
Yeah,
because you have to pay for your car and all that.
Well, that's why I'm not doing Turo, I guess. But
Yeah, like the margins aren't as high, but it's still like from a rate of return perspective, at least a 10% plus rate of return,
Right. But if you take this model that I've got, 10 million vehicles doing $50,000 in gross profit a year, that's $500 billion in gross profit for Tesla. That's leaving out all of Tesla Energy. That's leaving out selling other vehicles. That's leaving out AI training as a service. You've got $500 billion a year in gross profit. And then you discount for net profit and say you've got $300 billion a year in net profit. And you get to the same number of basically a $9 trillion market cap. And I've left out a whole bunch of stuff. So,
I'm a cannabis investor. I invest in a lot of cannabis companies. And this is like when you go see a grow room and you're talking afterwards and, you're like, how big could it get? It's like, that's an outrageous number, like, so you're assuming major human behavioral shifts in this analysis?
No, not yet.
Because you're saying like in the next 10 years, right? Like that's your time frame?
No. So the second stage of the model is where we get major shifts. This stage of the model, it's basically replacing Uber and Lyft and taxis and growing that market somewhat because the cost of riding in an Uber or Lyft, the equivalent of Uber and Lyft, has gone down. Right, we've gone from $2.50 to $3 a mile to $1 a mile. So more people who are
so where do the Uber drivers go? Are they going to still sit in the car and monitor the thing, or are you saying the cars will just be driving around?
Cars driving itself. No human in the car.
No human in the car. And your time frame for that is 10 years.
No, the 2030 is 8 years away. I would say we're going to see Robotaxi. Well, I think we might see Robotaxi in 2023 or 2024, but push it to 2027. That's plenty of time to ramp up to 10 million vehicles in 2030.
Well, there's an issue called the U.S. government, and they're real dumb. They're real dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so one of the problems with this is there are many Americans today who carry weapons when they go to the market. They need a machine gun at the Ralph's. You bring your rifle to the Ralph's.
I carry a pistol. I carry a pistol with me everywhere.
Well, I have a pistol too, but that's mostly because of haters or whatever. Everybody's got to have a pistol. But no, I'm saying like if you look at even our election, the range of mentalities that people have in our country, the data shows that we're the dumbest we've ever been as a country. Okay. So when you actually look at scores, like we're the dumbest America has ever been. And that's obvious. It's just, look at Herschel Walker, literally got half the votes. And
I think you're overestimating how smart we were in the past, but go ahead.
That's also possible. Like we didn't track it well enough. But I also thought because of like Darwinistic need for survival, it was harder to live in America in the past. So you just died, like now we keep people alive, no matter how old, sick, whatever they are, it's like, we got to save everybody. And so I think if you were dumb in the old days, the consequences were much worse. Much worse. Go back to the cowboy days, right? You made a mistake, you were dead. You ate the wrong food, you were dead. You drank the wrong water, you got dysentery. It was. We
have better ambulance care, better emergency room care. We're able to save people when they make.
We don't even think we're animals anymore. You know what I mean? Like we think we're this like higher species that's like immune from the world's horrors, and yet you go to Ukraine and you see the same genocide going on from 100 years ago, and the same monsters that my relatives fled are still there. And you go, humans, we're not that great. We overestimate our abilities by a massive amount. And we're smarter than bears and other animals for sure. But I think we're putting ourselves on a path to extinction as well. So that said, the humans are going to prevent the cars from taking over. That, right, Warren? Like the humans have a lot of incentive to prevent the cars and the robots from taking over.
I think that there will be resistance. And
resistance. There's movies called The Terminator that are meant to scare our society of the future that Elon wants.
Well,
okay. The future that we're going to have.
I see a path to it that I think you can relate to. If you look at the Waymo project in Chandler, Arizona, if you look at Waymo and Cruise in San Francisco, there are certain places that are allowing robotaxi fleets to operate already. So if I'm running Tesla and I'm not running Tesla, and I'm about ready to debut my robotaxi fleet, I'm going to go somewhere where it's already done. And I'm going to demonstrate that it works in Chandler, Arizona, and San Francisco, and whatever other cities are doing robotaxi. And probably there's some cities in China. I think Shenzhen, China has robotaxi.
Yeah, I think we'll see it in China for sure before here.
So
for sure.
As soon as you demonstrate it somewhere, if you can demonstrate, hey, this is working, hey, this is safe, then the next step is to go to a friendly jurisdiction like Florida, which I don't know if you're aware of this. Florida adopted a law that said self-driving cars and robotaxi networks are legal and local governments cannot tax or regulate them.
Right. I mean, this is typical Florida. Florida is where you get to do everything you're not allowed to do other places.
Hey, that's why I live here. So
yeah, listen, I'm not saying it in a bad way.
And I think Vegas as well with the Boring Company tunnel system.
Right. Vegas is like that too.
So once Vegas and Orlando in particular, Vegas and Orlando, maybe Miami, once they adopt robotaxi fleets and they adopt Boring Company tunnel systems, by the way, which we won't talk about today, you have people coming in. Las Vegas and Orlando in particular are the two largest convention cities in America. And lots of government officials fly into Orlando, they fly into Las Vegas, and they go to events. And they're going to experience robotaxis and Boring Company tunnel systems for themselves. And they're not going to say, wow, this is great. My constituents are going to like this. They're going to say, this is great. I want this. And once you get local government officials and state government officials to experience the benefits of robotaxis, they're going to want it from themselves in their home states. And that's,
but you don't really believe that's how the world works, right?
Yes.
Like we just had an election yesterday, and you think half the things on that people are voting for and believe in are because they're what's best for everybody?
No, I'm not talking about the voters.
I'm talking about the politicians.
I'm talking
the
about
politicians are paid for by the unions. The unions are the ones who pay these people. And the unions do not want robots and robotaxis. They want to protect humans and high-paying jobs doing very little. That is what unions do. Okay, we live in a country where the things that make sense don't happen. Okay, it's just the way it works. Now, I live in LA. It's the opposite of Florida, right? So in LA, we have to have 14 regulatory bodies just to go to the bathroom. Okay. In Florida, you can take a poop on the street. Nobody cares as long as you clean it up.
That's right? San Francisco. That's San Francisco.
No, in San Francisco, nobody cleans it up. That's different. Okay. And so in San Francisco, you poop on the street and it's like, oh, that's fine. In Florida, you poop on the street, you clean it up. But that said, there will be states that are very progressive and will be further along than other states. But there are also states that are banning abortion right now. Okay. Like I literally look around and go, am I in the same country? Like this was like a 50-year ago. Wait, we got oil prices high. We got abortion as an issue. Am I born again? You know, this is when I was born. You know, that was what we were doing. You know, you're my age. You know what I'm talking about.
We're dating ourselves. Yes.
I'm fine with that, but I'm not fighting this battle again over abortion. Let women choose. Jiminy's crickets. Herschel Walker gets 100 women pregnant, 100 abortions, and now he's against abortion. It's unbelievable, these people. So I have no faith that humans are going to be fine with robots and cars taking their jobs and being super efficient and being in these modern cities. And we're going to have a whole group of Trumpers who are going to try to stop everything because they don't like this and they want to protect the unions. You got the Dems, you got the Trumpers, you got all these people who want to protect high-paid, underworked people. Okay. It's kind of like when Elon comes into Twitter and says, I'm firing all the lazy people, and everybody gets all upset. It's like all upset. And then the next day, Facebook fires all lazy people and Salesforce fires all the lazy people. You know, every company all of a sudden is firing everybody, right? Like, oh, but Elon's the bad guy. Why? Because he said it.
Yeah.
Because he goes out, he's like, I'm firing half the company because they suck. And he says it. And he's like the bad guy. And then Zuckerberg goes on. He's like, I suck and I'm firing half the company too. So the people don't want this. You know, the people don't like the technology kings and the technology gods. They don't trust these people. And so I think that the biggest risk to everything that we do in technology is government.
So I agree with you 100%. That's actually one of the things I bring up a lot.
And I'm in the cannabis business, so I can tell you the government can just screw you, tell you they're going to legalize it, tell you you're going to do all this stuff, and then they don't do it.
Or they interfere with the financial end of doing cannabis transactions.
Yeah. So what about taxing okay, you can have your Robotaxi, but now I'm going to tax you 50% because there's no humans involved and, blah, blah, blah. And we got to pay the benefits and UBI for all the people who don't have jobs now. So I think when you have labor shortages, everybody's like, oh, robots are great. And yeah, we have labor shortages, but that won't last. And when we have unemployment again, nobody's going to want robots taking their jobs.
So let me just address that. I wasn't going to go there, but let's go there. There is a perception, and Elon shares your perception, that when the robots become more common, that they're going to displace humans from jobs. And what we've seen over the last 100+ years is we get new technology that comes along that all of a sudden we no longer need elevator operators doing the elevator operator job. We get ATMs and we no longer need tellers to do this kind of work or whatever.
Yeah, the whole horse business is gone, right?
So there's this whole perception that that technology destroys jobs, and what people miss is the technology always creates more jobs than it destroys. And the bank teller example is a great example of that, because when you and I we're about the same age, and when the ATM came along, they said it was going to destroy bank teller jobs, and bank teller jobs doubled.
There's no bank tellers anymore. Wait, Warren.
Yes, no. So I'm sorry you missed this story. The reality is that what happened was ATMs made banking so much more efficient that banks were able to open more branches, and they were able to.
But they're shutting them all now.
Well, that's because of online banking, not because of ATMs.
No, it's because the technology keeps getting better and better, right?
But what
ATM was just the beginning, my man.
I'll get there.
That was the first step.
I'm just saying, when the ATMs first came out, there was this horror story that, oh no, all the bank teller jobs.
There's going to be nobody left working in banks soon.
Maybe, but there was a period of time where what happened was bank branches expanded because it was much more cost effective to run a branch, because the ATMs did the grunt work. They were able to get the bank tellers to do higher value work, and bank teller jobs actually doubled for about 20 years.
You went to college, right, Warren?
I did.
Okay. Now there's a whole movement that says this is a stupid idea. You know that, right?
I kind of regret it.
Waste of money.
I'm happy with doing my life.
There's a whole movement that says college is a waste of money.
Yeah.
Okay. It's some liberal attempt to, indoctrinate you into this world that you don't need, $200,000 in debt. And it's the most untrue thing in the world. College is one of the most important things that people do in their lives. To continue to educate themselves at that age is crucial. There's very little that you're going to do at that point in your life that's more valuable than education. And the cost pays off. Every study shows 2x. You make twice as much money being educated versus uneducated. So what you're saying is true if you're educated. If you're uneducated, it's not true, because technology divides the haves and the have-nots substantially. And that's why we've seen substantial wealth inequality growth over the last 20 years. So when you think about, you could be a small business owner today, start a company on Shopify and do millions of dollars in revenue if you're entrepreneurial in 2 years. It's the most incredible period of time for entrepreneurs ever. Like, you have a YouTube channel, you can make millions of dollars a year. Like in the old days, if you weren't on TV, you couldn't be in entertainment.
Right.
You had to come to LA and beg Les Moonves, who was a weirdo, for a job, or Harvey Weinstein. Can you imagine what people did to get a job, to be on TV? Now you go on YouTube, everybody in the world watches it more than any other channel. People like you and me go on it and get hundreds of thousands of views. It's incredible. Engaged viewers, right? Yeah. Not the half asleep TV viewers. And so technology has created these amazing opportunities, just like Tesla will with Robotaxi and batteries. It will be amazing. But it does, if you're not educated and you're doing service type jobs, or you're the blacksmith in the days, you're putting horseshoes on horses, and then the car comes around and it's like, well, we're creating tons of new jobs in the auto industry. 100% true. But that small business blacksmith who had his little shop and would fix your horse doesn't want to go work for Ford. So the people who worked for Ford. And it was not fun working for Ford. That's for sure. Okay. And so technology, it's like music. I call it's like creative destruction, where something comes around and it's super awesome and creative and amazing, and it takes everybody up to a higher plane, but something's destroyed below it. And a lot of times the people who suffer the worst from technology are the ones in our society that have the least resources and education. And we haven't provided good solutions for those people, especially here in LA, for example, despite enormous resource being put into it. And I think that needs to be addressed, which is what happens to the people who are left behind.
Yeah, but you say that, and the reality is that technology, I agree that the income inequality increased in some ways, but the reality is the bottom is doing better today than they did 50 years ago. They have
not much, though.
Much better. Come on, they have better health care.
They have better quality of life, 100%.
Their 100%.
But
better.
Economically, when you adjust for inflation,
their cell phones are much better today than they were.
100%. 100%. But economically, when you adjust for inflation, the average family in America only makes a little bit more money than they did 50 years ago.
Wait, let me try this on you. How many pairs of shoes did you have when you were a kid?
No, you're 100% right. I'm not arguing with you.
I had like 2.
Right. And my kid has 6 Jordans, whatever.
I had like 2 pairs. I had a pair of basketball shoes.
Our abundance is huge now. We have food everywhere. They come to our house and bring us food.
I didn't have basketball shoes.
I used to have to go to the market.
I didn't have basketball shoes. I had sneakers. They were football sneakers. They were basketball sneakers. They were the same sneakers for all the sports. And
I had one pair of sneakers. I don't remember having 3 pairs. You know,
I'm moving out of this house. Do you realize how many shoes I threw out?
I give them away. I
basically filled a 40-gallon bag of contractor bag with old shoes. Like, we've had so many shoes.
But our society has tremendous abundance and wealth. And what I would argue is exactly what you're saying is true, that the quality of life for low income people in America is incredibly good. And I know that sounds wrong. Oh, the rich guy is saying this and that. I'm just saying, if you like, when I went to Egypt as a kid, my first day in Egypt seared poverty into my mind like I had never seen. I had never seen anything like it. Right. And I'd been to Watts and, bad neighborhoods. I lived in Philadelphia and ghetto for a while and, like real bad areas. And, it was so nice. But when you walk down a refugee camp in the Middle East or something, it's enormous levels of hardship and poverty that our poor don't even come close to facing, obviously.
But I was just gonna say, even like working people, like, I don't know if you're familiar with the chain Buc-ee's. It's a ridiculous gas station chain that has like 100 pumps, and they have this store inside that's the size of a small Walmart. And
really?
They have some pretty cool products too. There's one outside of Houston.
I don't think they have them on the West Coast.
No, and they just started getting them in Florida. But anyway, if you walk into a Buc-ee's, there's a sign out front, and they're starting at $18 an hour.
Yeah.
For working in a store or gas station, right? A lot of places, and I think in LA, if you're working at McDonald's,
LA, it's more.
But isn't it like $25 an hour to work at McDonald's now in LA?
22, but remember, our costs are twice as high as Florida.
Right. So I just mean,
so $18 an hour in Florida is like real good. $20 an hour in LA is not. You know what I mean?
Yes, but I'm just saying that what happens is, as you improve technology, you improve the productivity of labor, and that applies. I agree with you that you get more if you are college educated, if you're technically sophisticated, but even regular relatively uneducated people get a lot more out of it. So I think there's hope there.
Yeah, this is really hurting. Elon is, they cut off all the revenue to Twitter, and granted, he did it to himself, but he's got a problem. I'm trying to help him with this, but he doesn't ask for a lot of help.
No, I think he has his vision of how he wants to move forward, and he's got some help. He's got Sachs and Calacanis in there and a couple other people in there.
Those guys are the worst. Okay. Not as people.
Shots fired.
No. I like both those guys. That's not it. They don't know how to run a media company. Okay. This is entertainment and media. Like, I had dinner with this guy, Kevin Mayer, used to work at Disney, he worked at TikTok briefly. He's one of the top guys in entertainment. He is so sharp. He should be running Twitter. He knows what to do. He built Disney Plus. Okay. 220 million subscribers in 3 years. This is the guy. Okay. I'm having dinner with this guy going, this guy's so sharp. The advertisers love him. he's got his own company now because he's kind of like, and he bought Hello Sunshine, which is Reese Witherspoon. He could get all the Hollywood and content people back on the platform. He should be running Twitter. But like when you hang out with entertainment people versus like Calcantis and Sachs and Musk, they're engineer tech people and they don't get along. See, I work in the Hollywood world. Like that's the woke world. That's the world that these guys do not see. They don't get it. And this is the thing they don't get. Okay. They can be conservative, which I'm fine with, but I'm not an advertiser. And advertisers in the ad industry and the entertainment industry, they're super liberal. Okay. That's just what it is. And you can't go on and say, oh, I'm leaning right Republican, but spend your ad dollars on my platform. That's like the worst thing you could do trying to convince advertisers. Okay. What you say is, I don't have a political thing, even though you're lying. Okay. And you say, this is free for all. And I support whatever platforms you guys want to support, not like, oh, I'm leaning towards Republicans because a split house is good for the markets. It's like, come on.
Okay.
And I don't think he should be happy with Biden. I get that. But when you buy a social media platform, okay, it's media. Social. So nobody would say Jason and David Sachs are like the social kings of America, right?
Right.
Nobody would say they're the media kings of America. They are the technology kings of America. And what's wrong with all these technology people is they don't get people. They don't get humans. They don't get what makes us laugh and cry. We have emotions. We care. We hate Trump. Like they just don't. Like I was just saying, like Ron DeSantis is the best thing to ever happen to the Republican Party because now Republicans can vote for somebody that isn't Trump, but has similar ideas. And I think he should be the nominee for the Republicans for sure. And Trump has no plan for this. And it's going to be super entertaining. It's going to be super entertaining to see how the Republicans deal with this problem. Okay.
Yeah.
But nobody likes Trump. So why would you go on, buy a platform and say, I'm putting Trump on it? Why would you do that? And advertisers to say, I'm not advertising.
Well, I think the issue is a long run. I think Elon wants to move Twitter where it's not dependent on advertising. And so if he gets people to pay $8 a month, and I'm going to pay $8 a month, and you'll probably pay $8 a month, then that may generate plenty more revenue than
people aren't going to pay $8 a month. He's out of his mind. He hasn't even done any research on what people will pay. See, this is what I'm talking about. He doesn't know how to run Twitter. Okay. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's like, oh, it's an engineering problem. It's not an engineering problem. Okay. So think about a human being who could get Netflix for $8 a month. It's way more entertaining than Twitter. Twitter's the news. People hate the news.
Wait. Do you spend more time on Twitter or more time watching Netflix?
Way more time on Netflix. Way more time.
Oh,
for sure. For sure. Twitter is like half an hour, maybe.
Oh, I'm on Twitter all day long and I don't watch Netflix at all.
Twitter's like painful. You know what I mean? So like for me, I tweet and I do my tweets and I'm done.
Okay.
And I can watch Netflix for hours. I mean, there's great stuff on Netflix. There's great stuff on streamers. I play video games. I played Call of Duty last night. The new Call of Duty is great. It's the best one they've done in a few years. But I play video games way more than I'd use Twitter, 1,000 times more. I'm like good at Call of Duty. I'm good at Warzone.
I'm impressed.
Like I have a team.
I can't handle the user interface of those games. It's too complicated.
They're amazing technology. Talking about technology. Yeah. So that said, I think Twitter has a place. It's the news. People don't like the news. So you have to convince people to want to get the news. You got to give people relevant data so that they want to get on Twitter other than to just see what Elon's saying next. Social media shouldn't be Elon's platform. It should be the people's platform.
I don't think the plan is that 90% of Twitter users will pay the $8. I think the plan is that 5 or 10% of Twitter users will pay the $8 because
I know the plan. I'm an investor in Twitter with Elon.
Yeah.
I know the plan and I can tell you the plan is great, but he's miscalculated the way his actions would affect the revenue model. And I think he doesn't seem to connect the things he says and does from his perspective versus the perspective of the people who see it.
Yeah.
You know, like, for example, he said something like, well, the advertisers are cutting off in a way that's like cutting free speech because they don't like, you know, me running the platform. In essence, they're killing free speech because they don't want to advertise on the platform. And I was like, no, that's not it at all. It's that you're the moderator of the platform and they don't trust you being the moderator of the platform. So they're not going to pay you to run this platform for them, the advertisers, because it's their platform, actually. Okay. So if you want them to pay, maybe you should go out and tell them things they want to hear, not things they don't want to hear. Like, oh, I'm going to align with the worst human, you know, ever. And I go, and I have, you know how many times I have to tell people that Elon isn't a Trump supporter? Why am I having this conversation? Why are people asking me
okay,
this?
but there's something else going on there. What's going on there is there's a massive disinformation campaign that's been going on for more than 2 years of the Democratic Party and the mainstream media, and
that's right.
Companies, Tesla Q and the auto industry and the oil industry lying to the people about Elon.
Right.
I never.
So why would you give them ammo?
It doesn't matter what he says.
Yeah, it does. It does matter. That's what I'm saying. It does matter what he says. I don't agree with that.
They attack him no matter what. I did this
with Tesla for years. I used to send him email every conference call. Think about what you're saying. Why are you doing resignation on conference calls? You know, why are you leaking negative emails to employees on, you know, like, I've dealt with their comms for years. He's the worst. He fires comms people left and right. The comms are Twitter for him. Okay.
Do they even have comms anymore? You're talking about
public? No, he fired all the comms people. He has no comms people. He's none. And so his messaging is like a nightmare. He doesn't even think about it. Like, I'm a very sophisticated media person, and I've been doing this my whole life, and I have contacts in every major news organization in the world, direct contacts. Like, I've helped Tesla so much, and they know it, and I still to this day. And I'm trying to help Elon now. But I'm also not going to make up stuff, and that's why I haven't, you know, respect and integrity among these reporters and among the news agencies, is because I tell them what I really think. And I just think he needs a lot of help, and he's not asking the right people for help. I don't think David Sachs is the right person to be asking for help. He needs liberals like me. I'm the only liberal of all the group of investors. And I sent them a long letter the first day saying I should be involved because I'm the only liberal here who gets media, who went to the Annenberg School of Communications at Penn, the #1 communication school in the world. Okay. I'm in the media every day on every channel globally. Somebody like me should be helping you. I haven't got an email back.
Isn't Calacanis a liberal?
Calacanis is a liberal, and I like Jason.
But he doesn't know media like you do.
Jason's a pretty sophisticated guy, so I don't want to underestimate his abilities, but I'm an entertainment guy. You know, I hang out with like rock and rollers, you know, like I'm an LA guy. It's just a different. And so when you're talking about social media, the TikTok is your competition. TikTok is based here in LA, down the street from me. Snapchat is next door. You see what I'm saying? It's an entertainment business. Kids want to be entertained. You know, Twitter, as much as it's news, is also entertainment. You know what I mean? And so it's like kind of what you're saying. It's Netflix or Twitter. So you are competing against Netflix. So I have to have good content. And like Elon's idea for video and content creators are great. That's why I invested in it, because I think Twitter could be an awesome version of YouTube. And I'm a creator. So I think if he takes care of content creators, I think it's an even better model than today. And I don't think the $8 Twitter Blue is the solution. I think the content creator side is where you really make money. Look at YouTube. So it's still ad rev though.
And what about the finance side? What's the financial side of the story? I mean, I don't know how much you can say about that, but there's this story about it becoming the largest financial company in the world. And you know, he's mentioned, he's connected it to PayPal, his PayPal past.
Like Binance?
I don't know if Dogecoin is involved in this. What is he picturing?
Well, Binance is involved.
But what's the financial model that turns Twitter into a finance platform?
So I was on Coinbase the other day, and I'm not a big fan of NFTs and Web3 at this point, or dApps, they're calling them.
Me either.
Everybody's so sold on decentralizing, but then Bitcoin is now centralized under Binance, which is why it's dropping like a stone, because it turns out one guy kind of controls the entire thing now. Okay. Defeats the whole purpose of Bitcoin if CZ owns all of Bitcoin. And I can talk about this all day. What happened yesterday was insane.
That was crazy.
Insane.
Yeah.
FTX turned out to be a fraud, which I thought the whole time. Where this frizzy-haired guy? I could talk about this for an hour. Hours. Unbelievable. Where's the SEC? This guy should be arrested immediately.
Yeah.
I
didn't even know who this guy was 2 days ago.
Oh, really?
It's
I didn't know who he was a year ago. And then in 1 year, he bought like everybody. And I was like, where did he get all this money? I get crypto was good a year ago, but I guess if you print your own money, which is what he did, he printed his own money.
Yeah.
It's just like Madoff. Okay. So he printed his own money and was backing his own firm with his own printed money. That's what happened. And when CZ said on Sunday, I want to sell 600 million of it, goodbye.
Yeah.
Because there was worthless.
Yeah.
Turns out after raising all this money from the smartest people in Silicon Valley.
But where do
people we've named?
But how do you see what's the Twitter model? Is it micro payments? Is it
it's just the digital ecosystems.
Am I
if
going to
you
be
go to Coinbase today?
Am I going to be buying Tesla stock through Twitter?
Probably not, because there's regulatory issues and you can already do it through Robinhood, and you're not going to do better than Robinhood. So for example, if Twitter bought Robinhood, that would make more sense. See, I don't want to compete there in fintech. Fintech is tough. I'm in fintech. There's such good software already. We don't build software. We just use other people's, and there's so much good stuff all the time coming out. So, nothing Twitter is going to do is going to be in commerce. What I really think it is the commerce in the community around Tesla that can connect through Twitter, that can then connect the commerce of whether it be NFTs or digital assets being moved back and forth to buy goods and services like your Uber Eats or whatever. I'm not sold that everybody's going to want to use Bitcoin instead of dollars. There is already a digital dollar. It's called Apple Pay. So digital currencies aren't really being used for commerce now, even after all these years, because it's just not effective for commerce at this point. So I think what they see longer term is that if we all have profiles and we're all connected through Twitter, and we all can then have digital assets we can buy, sell, and trade to each other, that this ecosystem can exist within Twitter. I think the Cash App, PayPal, Venmo already do a pretty good job of this, though.
Yeah.
And Coinbase does a pretty good job of it. Robinhood does a pretty good job of it, and I don't think Twitter is going to beat that. But I do think it's in his plan to acquire companies too.
Because he said he had this plan for 22 years ago when he was at PayPal, and it never happened, and now he's going to do it.
Yeah.
He hasn't really said what that is.
Well, it's like WeChat. So it's the same idea.
Okay.
It's just like, why can't I just do everything in one app? It's like, I got to go to Uber Eats. I got to go to this. I got to go to that. I don't find that to be that hard to do on an Apple phone, but it's kind of like the problem with entertainment, where we don't know where any show is anymore. So we have to flip from show to show to show, and we're like, oh, is this on Apple or is it on Prime? There's no, when I went on my cable, it was just like, it was on cable. Right. I don't think, so the way it was explained to me originally, and the way I believe, is they have no idea what that is. They'll figure it out when they get there. That's how Elon invented a lot of the things he's invented. Like the example with Starlink. Starlink was not in the SpaceX business plan. Never was. I just got my Starlink. I think it's probably one of the most game-changing products I've ever seen. Globally. Now, for me, I have internet access. I bought it as a backup. Why? Because I have one string that connects everything to my house, and I actually don't get cell service in my house. Okay. So because I don't get cell service in my house, if the internet goes down, I'm isolated, So I bought Starlink. Okay. Why? It's my backup internet now. Okay. This thing is incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's an incredible product. Like, you think globally, how many people don't have good internet access, and you just send them this one box and you put out the dish. It's smaller than a direct TV dish. And you just get this wireless router and you connect it and you can put it anywhere. This thing. Yeah. It's incredible. But SpaceX wasn't built to build Starlink. And I think that's their idea with Twitter, is they're not really sure once they fix Twitter 1.0 and they make Twitter what they really think it should be. And I think it'll be a great product once it's done, because I think they care about the product. And I think they have a vision for the product that didn't exist at Twitter. So I actually like the vision that they have, but they have to make advertisers happy, whether they like it or not. They've got to be platform agnostic. You got to pretend that you're independent. You can't take a side when you run a.
Oh, wait. Did Twitter really pretend they were independent?
No, I don't think any news agency does a great job pretending to be independent, except maybe Bloomberg, because they get subscription revenue.
I think what you're really saying is they need to pretend to be Democrat.
No.
Because that's what Twitter did. Twitter, there was just some graphic.
Twitter was woke. It wasn't Democrat.
Right.
It was woke.
Right. Okay. Right. But they donated but Twitter employees donated a crazy amount of money to Democrats and didn't donate to Republicans.
No, same with Tesla employees. That was on the same list. Tesla employees donated 95% to Democrats. Okay. 95% of people at Tesla support Democrats. Okay. Period. Okay. It was only 3 or 4% and more than Twitter. Less. Okay. So if over 90% of your organization supports Democrats, your organization's Democrats, like mine. Yeah. Now, I'm an ex-Democrat like Elon, except that I hate the Republicans just as much. So, or more, actually, more. So I'm partyless. So this is the way Elon should have played it, because there are certain Republicans I actually support now. But if I tell my friends that, a certain amount of them are like, "You're crazy. What happened to you?" And a certain amount of them are like, "Wow, we really respect that. You're open-minded to other ideas." I go, listen, it's like this Karen Bass, Rick Caruso thing. It's like, I can't take Karen Bass. I just can't take another one of these people who's going to make our city worse. Like, I get Caruso only cares about money, but he has a huge amount of financial incentive to keep our city clean and safe. Okay. I live near a Caruso mall. I'll take my chances with Caruso, but Karen Bass, she doesn't care about like crime and all these issues that are affecting our city. She just doesn't. She's a part of the problem. So we could argue about this. Normally I'd vote for Karen Bass 100 out of 100 times because I hate Caruso. I don't hate Caruso. Caruso is nothing that I stand for. Okay. But, the Democrats are doing such a bad job. You could tell me you're going to solve homelessness. You're not solving homelessness. Yeah. So sorry, law and order time.
Yeah.
So I'm an independent. I'm a Democrat in my heart, but I'm an independent, but I'm also open-minded and I'm a conservative in certain areas, We have
room for you in the Libertarian Party if you'd like to join.
Right. Us. That's what most people say is like, "Oh, you're like a libertarian." And then I hang out with libertarians. I'm like, I don't know if that's what I am, but what I am is just like a lot of Americans. We're just kind of in the middle. I think I represent a lot of people.
If you think Americans should be free to defend their marijuana fields and their gay spouses
with machine guns,
then you're welcome in the Libertarian Party.
Totally.
All right. Hey, listen,
I'm all for it.
I'm getting tired. You're amazing. You're a bundle of energy. I really appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap this up?
No, I mean, this was great. This is great because, I think your ideas are great. I like the big thinking math, and my job as a financial person is really to like drill down on numbers, and I think that was productive. And I don't think you're that off. You know what I mean? I think that when you're an investor and you look at the stock market every day, like I do, it can be really confusing what your goal is. Like stocks going down, it's down 50%. And Tesla's doing great. Okay. So if you're an investor, you're like, oh my God. But yet at the same respect, like if you actually look at what Tesla's doing, like our discussion today, it's incredible. We just talked about enormous moats that nobody's even close to. And you hit on, and you didn't bring up one, which I'd love you to model on your napkin math, is supercharging value. The value of the supercharging network is what I've been trying to figure out.
Yep.
Because I don't think anybody else is good at that either.
I have done that. I have it somewhere.
I mean, global supercharger network revenue. Like, what do you model out for total superchargers?
That really depends on what you do with them. If it's just the superchargers themselves, it's one thing. If you start building convenience stores or restaurants,
with the stores, that's what they're doing. Retail.
Then all of a sudden it becomes a game changer.
Dude, they built these ones in California, okay, just the other day. 150 stalls with the full store, like your Buc-ee's or whatever the hell you're talking about. And it's like a whole store, and people will go in and buy like Tesla gear and this and that and get coffee and hang out because we all like hanging out. We'll all have our Twitter profiles, so we'll know who's at that supercharger. So then I can like send a message to all my friends at the supercharger that happen to be there. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Cause like, that's what I think the coolest thing about Twitter is once it's integrated into the Tesla, and then I can connect to all my Tesla friends inside my Tesla. That's where Twitter gets super cool, because it's the communication and information app for the Tesla community inside the Tesla. That's where the software kind of comes into play for the entertainment or infotainment area for Tesla, because they're good at the mapping and the driver assist stuff. But what about infotainment? So now I've got video games, I got Netflix, I got Zoom, and now I'll have Twitter. But now I can link my car profile, my Tesla profile, to my Twitter profile. And now it gets super fun and interesting for the Tesla community. So when you start talking about what a supercharger network as a community, as a gathering place for Tesla, as another retail point for Tesla, as well as a unlimited revenue stream with potentially enormous margins. Elon said he models out 10% net margins on supercharging. So you can do your math on that and say, oh, what happens when we're at 100,000 superchargers? What happens when we're at 200,000 superchargers? And they're being used, And then he opens them up to the other cars because the other charging systems suck. So what's the value of the charging network?
Yeah, well, I just think your point about, so when I go to superchargers and I've been on a lot of road trips, a lot of times you're charging and there's nothing there for you. Maybe there's a place you can go to the bathroom, or there's like a McDonald's or something like that. But
there's like
some of the times there's nothing. And I see where if you said, hey, we've got this supercharger and we're going to create like a lounge, and there's a store and there's food and it's 24/7, and you can, I see some potential for that to generate more revenue from the superchargers in the future. And I don't know if they're going there or not.
No, they are going there, and they did this in Santa Monica. They opened up a thing. I have to go check it out. And they're also using it for service center too. So I think what they did in Santa Monica is it's charging, store, and service.
Yeah.
Well, and they took a big spot in prime Santa Monica, like right in the middle. Super smart.
It's one of the criticisms of Teslas that I hear is, oh, it takes you 30 minutes to charge, with a gas station only takes you 5 minutes. Well, yeah, that's why having services at the supercharger makes more sense. Because if I'm going to be there for 30 minutes to charge,
honestly, it's 15 to 20 minutes now on a 250.
It depends what you're doing, but like even if it's 20 minutes, it's more than the 5 minutes for filling up your gas tank.
I disagree with that 5 minutes. It's not 5 minutes to fill up a gas tank, because you have to drive to the gas tank place. You got to go find the gas station, then you got to fill up your tank, right? And then you got to get back on the freeway. So when most Tesla owners actually don't stop during the day to ever get anything. Most supercharging is done on road trips, right?
Right.
So like I start the day off, my car's charged. I never go to a gas station. I never waste 1 minute. So gas station people don't realize that they're wasting time every week doing this. And then when you add it all up, it's actually more time consuming than just charging the few times you're actually supercharged.
So I did model superchargers in a video, and I think I was too optimistic about what percentage of the time. In other words, if you figure a supercharger is generating a certain amount of revenue per hour, when someone's using it, or dollars per kilowatt hour, however you want to figure it out, the truth is a lot of superchargers are empty a lot of the time. Right.
Depending on the market. Right.
The market and the peak time of day. So if you go to most superchargers at 2 o'clock in the morning, there's no one there.
Right. It's like gas stations. Same thing.
The question is when's the op? So if you have 24 hours in a day, how many hours a day are the superchargers busy? And then you have certain superchargers which are very busy, and other superchargers that are dead. Like the 250 kilowatt chargers tend to be busier than the 120 kilowatt
So
hour.
now you found your Robotaxi drop off and pickup points, like, so that's what the Turo people are doing. So it's like, oh, you want to rent my car on Turo, then pick it up at the supercharger here and drop it off at the supercharger here. So that way you're charging for the next customer, and the last customer can charge too. So I see this as being sort of the infrastructure that they're building for Robotaxi.
Yes, I agree with that. That the supercharger network will essentially be the network for Robotaxi, and then
so at night, like, there'll be Robotaxis parked there, you know what I mean, or whatever,
right.
Charging ready for the day, and then in the morning somebody unplugs them all, and then they go do their job.
All right. Well,
anyways, this was amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoy this, and we got to do this more often because I really like your thinking, and I like big thinking. Like, this is the big thinking that the day-to-day people in the stock market oftentimes miss, that we're investing for the long term and stock prices will change, but what the business is what really matters. And over time, the business will have periods of time where it's extremely overvalued and extremely undervalued, but what matters is how the business is doing. And I think you're focused on incredibly important and valuable areas of Tesla.
Great. Are you a SpaceX investor?
No, I should have tried harder many years ago when I had the opportunity, and it was a pain. So I just didn't do it.
Yeah, I think we could do another video sometime where we talk about SpaceX or Boring Company or Neuralink down the road.
I see SpaceX as a less profitable business than Twitter and Tesla, because their main goal in a lot of ways is national security and science, and it's a government funded business. So things like Starlink have become incredibly valuable to SpaceX, but I don't think that was the original plan. But still, I had a chance, and it was a big pain, and I didn't do it, and I sort of regret it. But
I think the question I have for SpaceX, I'll just talk about it now for a second, is Starlink. I see the business model for Starlink. I think it's $1 trillion company. Starlink on its own,
it could be huge, right? Global internet. Right?
Launch services is a very clearly a profitable business. What I don't get is what's the profit story for Mars. I'm not saying there isn't there. I'm saying when I'm a big
government, that's the whole thing. It's just government.
I don't know. I mean, I almost think Elon's the customer. I don't think governments will come up with, you're going to need $1 trillion to create a colony of 1 million people on Mars. Elon becomes a multi-trillionaire. He sells $1 trillion worth of stock, and he funds the Mars mission. But the question ends up being, is, like the Dutch, what was it, Dutch West India Company or the Dutch East India Company became the largest company in the world. Is there some story there that it ends up being the equivalent of the Dutch East India Company and it ends up being super valuable?
I mean,
I don't see it.
Yeah.
I just don't. I like, as big as I like to think.
I wouldn't rule any of that out. I wouldn't say, oh no, that's not possible. Global internet service, it's worth a lot.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see lots more innovation if Elon stays healthy over the next decade. We're going to see amazing innovations like this. But I do have to go. And
all right, great. Hey, listen, thank you
Warren.
so much for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure. And thanks for having me.